I never thought a single evening could change the way I looked at someone I had known for years. My name is Emily, and until that night, I had always thought of Michael as just a part of my circle of friends, someone dependable, someone safe. We had known each other since college, and through all the ups and downs of life, he had remained a constant. That night, everything blurred into something I never expected. It started with something so simple, so innocent, that if I tell the story from the beginning, you might laugh at how easily life can twist on its own axis. It was a Thursday, one of those unexpectedly cold spring evenings where the wind seems determined to remind you that winter isn't fully gone. I had just come home from work when my phone rang. It was Michael. I could tell from his tone that he was tired, maybe a little frustrated, but he didn't say much except that he was in the neighborhood and asked if he could stop by. I hesitated for a moment. The apartment was a mess, and I had planned to spend the evening curled up in my pajamas with a blanket. But something in his voice made me say yes. He sounded like he needed to talk to someone, and I had always been that someone for him. Half an hour later, he was at my door with that familiar crooked smile, holding a pizza box in one hand and a bottle of soda in the other. "I thought I'd bribe you," he said, and I laughed as I let him in. We sat down on the couch, the TV murmuring in the background while we ate. It was like any other night we had shared over the years. We talked about work, about how his car had finally given out, about my boss who had a way of draining every last bit of energy from me. There was nothing unusual in any of it, and yet there was something different in the air that I couldn't put my finger on. As the evening wore on, the conversation shifted from casual chatter to the kind of honesty that only comes when two people are tired enough to stop guarding their words. He told me things he hadn't before, about how alone he sometimes felt, about how hard it was to watch everyone around him settle down while he still felt stuck. I listened, my heart twisting with empathy, because I knew those feelings all too well. We were both tired of putting on a brave face for the world. The walls that had always been between us suddenly felt thin, almost transparent. Somewhere around midnight, the power flickered and then went out completely. I hadn't expected that, and neither had he. The apartment fell into a strange kind of quiet, the only light coming from the city outside my window. For a few seconds, we both just sat there, letting the silence settle. Then he reached over and put his hand over mine, and it was the first time that night I realized how close we were sitting. My heart gave a startled jump, but I didn't pull away. We stayed like that for a while, just holding on to each other in the dim light, and the world outside seemed to fade away. I don't know what made me turn my head to look at him, but when I did, he was already looking at me. There was something in his eyes I had never seen before. Something searching, something vulnerable. It made it impossible to look away. And then, almost without thinking, I whispered, "Michael." He moved before I could think about what was happening. It wasn't fast or sudden, just a slow, inevitable leaning in until I could feel the warmth of his breath. When his lips finally met mine, it wasn't the kind of kiss I had imagined 1,000 times in movies. It wasn't perfect or planned. It was hesitant at first, then sure, and it made my whole body go still, like the world had been holding its breath with me. I didn't know how long it lasted. When we pulled apart, both of us were quiet, our foreheads resting against each other. My heart was pounding so loud that I was sure he could hear it. "Emily," he said softly, "I've wanted to do that for a long time." The truth of it was written all over his face, and I didn't even know what to say. So I kissed him again. The second time, it was different. There was no hesitation. The moment pulled us closer, and before long we were wrapped up in each other, all the years of unspoken feelings pouring out at once. The couch beneath us felt like it was barely there, like the only thing real in that moment was the way his arms felt around me and the way his heart raced when I placed my hands against his chest. Somewhere in the middle of all of it, I realized I wasn't afraid. It wasn't reckless. It was something that had been building for years. At one point, we stopped and just stared at each other. I could see the same uncertainty in his eyes that I was feeling. The unspoken question of whether we were crossing a line that we couldn't uncross. I was about to say something when we both laughed nervously at the same time, and it was like that laughter made everything easier. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to. We just let the night carry us where it wanted to. Then came the moment that changed everything. We were caught somewhere between passion and hesitation, between wanting more and being afraid of ruining what we already had. We froze, literally stopped mid-movement, and I could feel the tension in the air like it was a living thing. It wasn't awkward. It was overwhelming, like time itself had paused to ask us if we really wanted this. And in that stillness, I realized that my whole body was trembling. Michael was the first to speak. "Are you okay?" His voice was barely above a whisper, and I could hear the care in it. He would have stopped right there if I had asked him to. That's who he was. That's why I trusted him. I nodded, but my voice wouldn't come out. My throat was tight, and all I could do was look at him, really look at him, and see every moment that had led us here. Every smile, every late-night conversation, every time he had been there when no one else was. And I whispered, so softly I barely heard it myself, again. It was the single word that pushed us past the edge of hesitation. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. Every moment after that was deliberate, careful, full of meaning. The storm outside raged against the windows, but inside that little apartment, there was nothing but warmth. The world outside could have disappeared, and I wouldn't have noticed. For hours, time seemed to bend around us, stretching out into something that felt infinite. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with us, and we ended up lying on the couch tangled together under a blanket. The light still hadn't come back on, but I didn't care. I listened to his heartbeat as it slowed, my head resting on his chest, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. He ran his hand gently through my hair, and I could feel him smile against the top of my head. Neither of us spoke for a long time. There was nothing left to say. Everything had already been said in the silence between us. When the sun finally came up, painting the room in soft light, reality started to creep back in. We both knew the world would look at us differently now. That our friendship had changed in ways we couldn't undo. But as I looked at him, still half asleep, I didn't feel any regret. I felt peace. Whatever came next, we had crossed that bridge together, and there was no going back. Michael opened his eyes and smiled at me, that same crooked smile that had been the beginning of so many moments in my life. "Coffee?" he asked, as if it was the most normal thing in the world. And maybe, in that moment, it was. I smiled back and